What is up, everyone? Tony Picks here with another upload for the Till versus Masvidal fight night in the London at the O2. We're going to get right into it. It's going to be a full fight card breakdown. I'm going to kind of go quickly through the prelims and then break down the main fight card a little bit better. So kicking off the fight card, we got Mike Grundy squaring off against Nader. Pretty interesting matchup. Mike Grundy was a bronze medalist in the Commonwealth, has really good wrestling, squaring off against Nader, who's durable, has some good hands, good stand-up, and decent wrestling. Does train at Team Alpha Male also, so he is getting good looks in on a daily basis with people on UFC caliber. Pretty simple for me. I think that if Mike Grundy is going to win, it's going to be kind of a grind-out battle. Grind him against the fence, take down, try to land some damage on top. But I think that Nader has the better stand-up, more power. He's going to be able to land the bigger shots, avoid Mike Grundy's wrestling, avoid any dangerous positions, and really edge out a unanimous decision win. So I'm going to break this. I'm going to go with Nader via unanimous decision victory. Squaring off in the next matchup, we got Molly Meatball McCann squaring off against Priscilla. We've seen Priscilla get absolutely demolished against Valentina Shevchenko. Really was too much of a step up for her in terms of coming into the UFC. Kind of the same situation with Molly McCann. We've seen her get taken down in Albertson. So this is a pretty interesting matchup for both of them, kind of going against the same style fighter. It's going to be a stand-up matchup in my opinion. I think that both of these fighters' strengths are on their feet. I think that Molly McCann has has more power, better head movement, and better hands. In terms of Priscilla Cachoeira, we didn't really see much against Valentina Shevchenko because she just got demolished. I watched some of her previous fights. She doesn't really use her range well. She just kind of brawls, doesn't really have a ground game. So for me, I'm going to give Molly McCann the victory here. She's going to be fighting in a hometown, kind of the home crowd on her back. It's going to be a stand-up fight, which is going to, in my opinion, play into Molly McCann's favor. She has more power, a better chin, and like I said, it's a hometown fight for her, so she's going to have the crowd with her. With that being said, I'm going to give the unanimous decision or even a knockout in the first round victory to Molly McCann. Squaring off in the next matchup, we got Danny, the Hatchet Henry, squaring off against Dan Ige. This, for me, was probably one of the more difficult fights to break down. It's a really interesting matchup. Danny Henry's a really rangy fighter. Dan Ige is powerful, a good wrestler. But in terms of how I think the fight's going to break down, I think that in the first round, it's really going to tell the pace of the fight. If Dan Ige is able to land big shots on Danny Henry, I think he'll be able to put him out early. We've seen Danny Henry kind of hurt against David Timur in that bout, and I think Timur is a much smaller and doesn't have as much power as Dan Ige. So I'd like to see Danny Henry come out focused like he did against Dawodu when he got that finish early. So in terms of how I think the fight's going to break down, I think that Danny Henry is going to use his slick striking to avoid the big shots by Dan Ige. Hopefully doesn't keep his head on the straight line. He moves his head. And I hope he utilizes his knees to the body. He really has good knees to the body. And I think that if Dan Ige is able to take him down, I think he has a good enough ground game to get himself back up. Although Dan Ige has a decent ground game, he has shown the tendency to gas, whereas Danny Henry shows that he's able to get strong goes on. So with that being said, I'm going to give Danny Henry the submission or knockout win in the third round. I think that this might even be a fight of the night. Both of these guys have really good stand-up. Really interesting to see how Danny Henry utilizes his range kind of with his karate stance, and if Dan Ige comes in early and with his power. But I really think that Danny Henry is going to be able to avoid the big shots, use his range, kind of pick Dan Ige apart in the first and second round, and land a finish in the third round. So I'm going to give the finish via submission to Danny Henry. Moving on to the next middleweight bout, we got Tom Breeze against Ian Danish. We've seen him on the Contender Series. He's a very physically strong guy. Pretty simple breakdown for me. I think that Ian's kind of swings really wide, and he has decent wrestling, but he has a tendency to gas. Tom Breeze is dangerous on the feet and has a really good ground game also. I think Breeze is going to be able to use his distance well, work off of his jab, a lot of leg kicks. And I really think that it's going to edge out into Tom Breeze's favor into the second and third rounds. So we're going to see how this plays out. It's pretty interesting to see. This is a kind of a tell. This will give us a lot of information on Ian Danish, or however you pronounce his last name, because Tom Breeze is a step up, although he did fight Cesar Ferreira, and he did get a unanimous decision when it didn't really impress me too much. Both of the fighters were pretty gassed, and he's a last-minute replacement on this fight too, I believe. Alessio Di Chirico was supposed to fight Tom Breeze, but he pulled out, so... and Tom Breeze obviously has the hometown crowd on his back, so I think that Tom Breeze gets the finish late in this fight via knockout. I think he's going to be able to withstand Ian's power, avoid the takedowns, and if it gets to the ground, I think he's really well off his back to avoid any damage, really. And when Ian starts to fatigue, he's really going to get picked apart by Tom Breeze's stand-up. Moving on to the next lightweight bout, we got Mariano against Safarov. Pretty straightforward. Both Safarov's pretty, both of these guys have power. Safarov or whatever is fighting out of Dagestan, so he's got to have some good wrestling. I didn't really look into this fight too much. Not really. Well, we'll see how this fight plays out. I'm going to give the edge to Niccol. He's younger, undefeated. I think he's going to get the swinging. So could go either way. That fight's really a coin flip, and they're not really top. Seen them excel yet in the UFC. Niccol, it's his first fight, so I'm going to give Niccol the win early by KO. I think both of these guys are going to come out swinging, and yeah, it's a coin flip on that one. Lightweight bout. Pretty interesting. Mark Diakase squaring off against Joe Duffy. So for me, this was actually a pretty interesting one that I kind of looked into a bit. So Joe Duffy's last fight was in 2017. He's coming off, obviously, that loss to James Vick. And Mike Diakase's coming off of 3 losses. Came in kind of as a prospect, but hasn't really developed. So this is interesting to me because a lot of people automatically are jumping to Joe Duffy, giving him the edge and stand-up. That he can easily take Mark Diakase down and sub him, which is very possible, but I'm taking into consideration the fact that he hasn't fought since 2017, and he's fighting someone really explosive like Mark Diakase, who's really dangerous early, and I think that when you haven't fought in a while and you're into the UFC, it'll kind of take you some time to get into the octagon, and especially kind of with... Mark Diakase is going to have the hometown kind of crowd here. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Obviously, in terms of stand-up, I'm going to give the power to Mark Diakase, but in terms of everything else, how their game's put together, how they move their head, how slick their stand-up is, Joe Duffy has the advantage with his hands, has the better wrestling, and has the better ground game. He has all the tools capable of beating Mark Diakase, but he hasn't fought since 2017. So does that come into play? Is that something that will affect him? A lot of people don't think so. They think they'll be able to, Joe Duffy's going to be able to win, and I definitely see he has an easy route here. He could easily pick Mark Diakase apart through the fight, avoid the big shots, take him down, and finish him. He has a lot of keys to victory here. But I think that key factor that he hasn't fought since 2017, Mark Diakase's coming off of 3 losses, his kind of backs up against the wall, and I think the most dangerous fighters are fighters that don't have anything else to lose. So with that being said, I'm going against the grain on this one with Mark Diakase, be a first-round finish. So we'll see on that one. That one's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. In the next matchup, we got Arnold Allen squaring off against Jordan Rinaldi. Rinaldi's coming off of that unanimous decision win to Jason Knight. Pretty boring, although Jason Knight is really hard to finish. Really just seen Jordan Rinaldi's wrestling in that fight. Didn't really see a decent stand-up. In my kind of lobby here, just kind of looking in that area. But yeah, moving back to the fight here. So Jordan Rinaldi's a good wrestler, but Austin Arnold really is better everywhere else. I think he has better stand-up, better ground game, more dangerous. Yeah, really just better everywhere the fight goes. So I think that Jordan Rinaldi or Austin Arnold's going to be able to edge out either unanimous decision unanimous decision or an early finish over Jordan Rinaldi. I think that Arnold has pop and it mixes his combos together well, but I think that if he's not able to get Jordan Rinaldi out in the first round, I think that Jordan Rinaldi is a tough guy to finish. I think that he's just going to be able to pick him apart for the next 2 rounds, but if he's able to rock Jordan Rinaldi early, he puts him out early. But I'm leaning more towards a unanimous decision, but an impressive performance I'm expected to see here by Austin Arnold. Moving on to the main fight card, we got Jack Marshman squaring off against John Phillips. Once again, another coin flip. Both of these guys come to bang. John Phillips moves forward. Jack Marshman a bit better octagon views, like a bit better performances. Obviously, John Phillips got submitted right away, got taken down. I think that the key to this one is that Jack Marshman has decent takedowns, like not decent, but better level than John Phillips, and I think that John Phillips has low to no level ground game. So I think that worst case scenario, if Jack Marshman gets hurt, has to scramble, he's going to be able to land a takedown, at least till he's able to clear the cobwebs and land big shots on John Phillips. Although it's a coin flip because both of these guys are going to come out swinging. But I'm going to give the edge here to Jack Marshman, solely on the fact that he's a more seasoned vet in terms of the UFC. He's fought better caliber guys, and he's shown that he's able to get rocked and stay in there and bang, really. Whereas John Phillips was really just taken down and really was kind of lost right from the start. So I'm going to give the coin flip here, but I'm going to give Jack Marshman the win, but I think it's going to be via ground and pound. I think take him down and just beat him. I don't think he's going to take any chances with John Phillips' power. I think he's really just going to see the key to victory, stay in there, bang with him, take him down, and finish him. In the next matchup, welterweight bout, we have Danny Roberts squaring off against Claudio Silva. Classic striker in Danny Roberts against your ground game technician in Claudio Silva. Claudio Silva's coming off of a not impressive, but really impressive ground display win of Nordin Talib. Danny Roberts coming off of 2 wins, 1 split decision to a Polish kickboxer, and the other knockout of Oliver Encap. Pretty interesting. Claudio Silva was coming off that 4-year hiatus, and then he fought Nordin Talib. The stand-up game wasn't looking good for Claudio Silva. He was kind of getting picked apart. Got Nordin Talib down, and then the instant he took him down, it was incredibly impressive. He took his back and submitted him. Really impressed me, to be honest. On that fight, I had Nordin Talib winning. I thought Nordin would be able to land the bigger shots early, which he did, and I thought that he'd be able to avoid Claudio Silva's takedowns, which he wasn't. And I think that that's a big kind of telltale sign for you. If Nordin's not able to avoid his takedowns, I really don't think Danny Roberts is. Danny Roberts does have wicked stand-up, which he could easily pick apart Claudio Silva, but it's his cardio that Claudio Silva does have questionable cardio too. But I think that if 2 fighters don't have cardio, the fight ends up on the ground. I think that it's a grapple fest and they end up on the ground. And if it's on the ground, Claudio Silva is going to absolutely demolish Danny Roberts. So I think that the way this fight plays out is Claudio Silva is going to come in, try to close the distance early, and I think he's going to be successful in landing a takedown to Danny Roberts, and I really think he's going to impress everyone with his submission. I think that Danny Roberts does have really good stand-up, but I don't think it's enough. I think his stand-up's good, but his wrestling is very questionable. His ground game's questionable. He came off a split decision win to a questionable fighter in general, just a fighter with decent stand-up, and Danny Roberts didn't impress me really that fight. Really got gassed, got taken down a few times too. So I think that if Claudio Silva is able to take down Nordin Talib and Danny Roberts is getting taken down against kickboxers, I think Claudio Silva is going to come in, avoid big shots. He took some big shots against Nordin Talib, but he ate them. He'll be able to do the same against Danny Roberts, take him down and get the finish via submission. Moving on to the next bout. This one's pretty fair up to me. I think that Nathaniel Wood against Joseph Quinones, pretty tailored matchup for Nathaniel Wood here. I think he's better everywhere on the feet and wherever the fight goes. I think he's going to get the first round KO victory over Jonathan Quinones. Not really much of a breakdown, just a quick prediction. So squaring off in the light heavyweight division, these next 3 fights are some of the most interesting fights on the fight card for me. First things first, shout out to Sammy Lights Out. Sammy Lights Out's prediction is Volkan Ozdemir via KO in the first round. So shout outs to Sammy Lights Out and good luck with that prediction. So squaring off, we got Dominic Reyes against Volkan Ozdemir. Volkan Ozdemir coming off of 2 losses. Dominic Reyes coming off an impressive Oven St. Preux win, and also some impressive wins in general. Pretty straightforward in how I think this fight's going to play out. I think that if Volkan Ozdemir is going to win the fight, it's going to be within the first 2 minutes of the first round. I think he's going to try to close the distance on Dominic Reyes, something that not a lot of fighters have been able to do without eating shots. And I think he's really going to have to be willing to eat a shot to give a blow. And he's gonna need to do that early, because I think that the instant Dominic Reyes starts getting comfortable with his range, I think Volkan Ozdemir is going to be in for a long night. So I think that that's Volkan Ozdemir's key to victory, is kind of that early knockout, that early chance of rocking Dominic Reyes when he still has his cardio. So I think that that's his key to victory. But I think that Dominic Reyes has a lot more ways to win here. He's as impressive stand-up. We've seen that he's able to avoid big shots against fighters like Oven St. Preux, Jared Cannonier, and really nullify them with his range. He mixes up his strikes well. I think his leg kicks are going to be huge here, and his body kicks. I think that also something that we may see here is him implement his wrestling. We've seen that Volkan Ozdemir's kind of lost on the ground, kind of a one-dimensional fighter. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dominic Reyes goes for the takedown, try early to avoid Volkan Ozdemir's power, kind of lets him tire himself out, trying to scramble to get up, land some damage. And I really think this fight's going to play out in the second round for Dominic Reyes. I think that the first minute plays out, Dominic Reyes is going to try to use his jab, his kicks, to keep Volkan Ozdemir at range. We're going to see Volkan kind of explode a few times, where that's going to be the most danger for Dominic. Explodes forward, he's going to have these bursts early in the first. So I think that Dominic Reyes, if he's able to avoid those, kind of use his jab, leg kicks, avoid those bursts, he's going to start really getting comfortable with the range, mixing his shots well, getting Volkan frustrating, and then at that point I think we're just going to start to see kind of lunging shots from Volkan, not really combos, just kind of single powerful shots, and that's going to be after the first 2-3 minutes in the first round. I really don't think Volkan Ozdemir has a good gas tank at all, whereas we've seen Dominic Reyes go 3 solid hard rounds and keep up the pace. So I think that Dominic Reyes is going to be able to avoid the big shots with his movement, and then he's really going to start to pick apart Volkan Ozdemir late in the first. Volkan's not going to have the same danger, same power, and I think that Dominic Reyes is going to put the pressure on, hit Volkan Ozdemir with some big shots, and I think he's actually going to be able to put him away in the first or second round. I think he's going to be able to really mix up his shots well, land a takedown, and finish him on the ground. Kind of not against the grain, but a lot of people are giving Dominic Reyes the knockout or submission. I think I'm going to give Dominic Reyes, or not knockout or decision. I'm going to give Dominic Reyes the second round submission here. I think Volkan Ozdemir is going to get gassed early, and Dominic Reyes, is going to be able to pick him apart, avoid the big shots, take him down, and finish him in the second round. Moving on, kicking off in the co-main event of the evening, we got welterweights Leon Edwards squaring off with Gunnar Nelson. So it's going to be a pretty fairly quick breakdown for me, because I think that it's going to be a fairly quick fight. I think that Leon Edwards' his key to victory is to keep the fight standing up, use his boxing, and land the big shots on Gunnar Nelson and put him out early when Leon Edwards still has his pop, because he does have some questionable cardio. But I think in this fight, I think Gunnar Nelson's going to close the distance early, land the takedown, and submit Leon Edwards. And the reason I say that is because we've seen Gunnar Nelson finish Alex Oliveira in the second round, but he took some big shots in the first, and I think that if he wants to move up in the rankings, he's going to have to be impressive without taking damage like he's kind of done in the past. And I think that Leon Edwards is a good fighter to do this against. I think that Leon Edwards doesn't have that great of a ground game, has decent wrestling, but not that, like, not to the level of Gunnar Nelson. I think that Gunnar Nelson is going to have relative ease taking down Leon Edwards. I think he's going to be able to avoid Leon Edwards. I think he's going to land big shots and force Leon Edwards to open up and then submit him, I think, is what's going to happen. I think the instant it gets to the ground, he's going to start landing some ground and pound. Leon Edwards is going to give up an arm or turn his back, and he's going to get submitted. And I think this is going to be early because Gunnar Nelson isn't going to want to take risk, realizing that if Leon Edwards is going to win, it's going to be by a big shot early. So I think he's going to kind of use his karate stance, feel it out, maybe close the distance, but maybe wait out, use some leg kicks, keep the range, and then the instant Leon Edwards moves in, try to close the distance, land a takedown, and then put him away early. So I'm going to give Gunnar Nelson the submission victory in the first round. Moving on to the main event of the evening, we got Darren Till against Jorge Masvidal. So you see this fight playing out on the feet. Obviously, both these fighters have pretty resilient stand-up. Darren Till, the more powerful of the two fighter, has that kickboxing style, whereas Jorge Masvidal also has that kickboxing style, but not as traditional, not as like uptight as Darren Till. Pretty interesting for me about Darren Till is he doesn't use a lot of like head kicks or body kicks for someone obviously with the kickboxing background, more of like a counter or that left strike. Something taken into consideration is Darren Till has a horrible weight cut. It's horrendous for him. He's a massive body. Jorge Masvidal, something to take into consideration and see sometimes in his UFC performance. Sometimes, like if you watch his fights, he has a tendency to get ahead early, land some big shots, and then kind of fall back, and then he acts surprised, like in the scorecards. It's kind of weird. So it's questionable to see what kind of Jorge Masvidal comes to play. So I see this fight playing out one of two ways. I think the first way, and like the more chances of happening, would be Darren Till controlling the stand-up, landing the bigger shots. Jorge Masvidal is someone who's very hard to put away. So I think that Darren Till is really going to be able to land the bigger shots, not necessarily put away Masvidal, but just a systematic beatdown of him through the first to fifth round. So it would be a Darren Till unanimous decision win. But as someone like me who kind of goes against the grain sometimes and likes to stir the pot, I think that, man, game bred Jorge Masvidal is interesting, and I think that he might go to the body in this one. I think he's got some good body shots, and I think that if he shows up to fight, which we've seen a lot of times, I think that he's going to implement the body shots on Darren Till early, hang in there, and he's going to try to make it more of a brawl than a technical matchup. Get in close, uses dirty boxing, and something that we need to take into consideration is Jorge Masvidal has some wicked ground game, and that's been something that I've kind of been doing in more recent fight cards. Is I've been looking at really good strikers, and I haven't been taking into consideration how bad they are off their back. Darren Till ate some huge shots against Tyron Woodley, so I definitely think that it's going to be hard for him to get finished by knockout, but that submission option is there. It's a slim chance. Like I think that the higher percentage obviously lies with Darren Till in the stand-up and avoiding Jorge Masvidal's takedown. He's the bigger body, but I think that weight cut is something that we need to take into consideration. His cardio, and if he's going to be able to avoid the takedown in the later rounds, because we're going to be seeing a lot of output from Darren Till. I think he's going to want to come and put on a performance, but he's not going to be able to finish Jorge Masvidal. I think that it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to pace himself with his stand-up. So, like I said, I think kind of in terms of percentage-wise, there's a 65% chance that Darren Till beats up Jorge Masvidal on the stand-up, uses his kickboxing, lands some big shots. A slight chance he puts him away, like slight. Jorge Masvidal is really hard to put away. but a high chance, like I said, 65% chance, just completely breaks down Jorge Masvidal in a stand-up. But for that 35% chance, I think that Jorge Masvidal kind of withstands the storm early of Darren Till, kind of not avoids, but kind of eats the big shots early, goes to the body early, keeps that in consideration. That's a bad weight cut for Darren Till, goes to the body early, and then as it goes to the later rounds, try to land a takedown and submit him. I think that that's a real chance, or even just like wait and start beating him up on the ground, which is a possibility. Like we said, we've seen Jorge Masvidal do that in some previous fights. But obviously, Darren Till's that bigger body, so it's questionable to see if he's going to be able to take him down. And Jorge Masvidal has that tendency to just kind of be okay with standing up on the feet. So it's really kind of like a questionable, hard pick for someone who really looks into it and looks in their previous fights and really wants to break it down. Because you look at Darren Till's previous fights, good stand-up, great at what he does, but then Jorge Masvidal, also good stand-up, great at not getting finished, but inconsistent. So you gotta kind of play out the factors. Jorge Masvidal's inconsistency, Darren Till's heavy weight cut. It's really weird. So as much as a lot of me, and my brain thinks that Darren Till will win by unanimous decision, I have to go against the grain here, and call me crazy, but I'm going to give Jorge Masvidal the finish in the 5th round via submission. There's a high chance Darren Till wins by unanimous decision, a very high chance of that, but I don't know, something about Jorge Masvidal game bred that I really like, and I really think that I've been sleeping a lot on strikers not having a good ground game, so this is incredibly against the grain, but I'm going to give Jorge Masvidal the late 5th round finish via submission. With that being said, guys, and I really hope you guys like this video. Comment what your predictions are, like, and subscribe. Yeah, guys, also let me know your predictions and what you guys think of my predictions. Have a good one.